We're covering all of it. When the president steps up, and look at that, here he is. Okay. The former president talking today about being in court. Let's listen in even before he starts as they do the setup here.
Sitting president has decided to prosecute his major opponent, who's leading in all the polls in the country. The issues that the court had to deal with today were momentous. Whether or not a president of the United States could be prosecuted for carrying out his responsibilities, doing his job as president. We can't have a country where every 4 years there's a cycle of political recrimination, where one administration attacks a prior administration.
So it was very interesting to hear the president compare his situation in terms of immunity as commander-in-chief to that of Barack Obama when, back in 2015, the headline in the New York Times was, "Drone strikes reveal uncomfortable truth. U.S. is often unsure about who will die." And he called what happened on the former president's watch mistakes. And he said that presidents must have immunity in order to do their jobs. And he said if you would offer it to one president, wouldn't you in fact offer it to the next president? Meaning it was offered to Obama, wouldn't it be given also to Donald Trump? So those were direct words from the former president after a morning in court deciding immunity and the election interference.
Mark Meadows, Trump's former chief of staff, who was with Trump throughout the entire post-election period, received immunity from Jack Smith's special counsel team. ABC News reported this story. Meadows was granted immunity and met with prosecutors at least 3 times in 2023. One of those meetings was in front of a federal grand jury, where he testified under oath about Trump's actions after the 2020 election. What he told them is devastating for Trump, because Meadows did not just give generic testimony. He gave specific, detailed accounts of conversations where he told Trump the fraud claims were baseless, where Trump was told by multiple people there was no evidence to overturn the election, and where Trump kept pushing the lies anyway. And here is the kicker. Meadows told prosecutors Trump was dishonest with the public on election night. He said Trump claimed victory and said he had already won while votes were still being counted. And Meadows admitted that in hindsight, obviously we did not win. So Trump's own chief of staff is saying Trump lied about winning. He lied to the public. He declared victory when he knew the race was not decided. And then when the final results came in showing he lost, he kept lying about fraud to try to stay in power. Forbes covered Meadows' testimony and reported that he told investigators he repeatedly informed Trump in the weeks after the election that the fraud allegations were baseless. He said he had seen no evidence that would change the outcome. He said officials like Attorney General Bill Barr and state election officials told Trump the same thing. Over and over, Trump was told there is no fraud, you lost, the claims are bogus, and Meadows is now testifying under oath with immunity that Trump knew all of this and pushed the lies anyway. And this completely destroys Trump's defense, because Trump's whole argument has been, I genuinely believed the election was stolen. I was acting in good faith. I was just listening to my advisors. But now his chief advisor is saying, no, I told him there was no fraud. I told him the claims were false, and he kept going anyway. That is not good faith. That is criminal intent. That is knowingly lying to overturn an election you know you lost. And that is what prosecutors need to prove to get a conviction. But wait, it gets even better or worse, depending on whose side you are on. Meadows wrote a book after leaving the White House. In that book, he suggested the Justice Department did not seriously investigate fraud claims and implied there might be a case for overturning the results. But under oath, with immunity, he told prosecutors the opposite. He said the DOJ took the claims seriously, properly investigated them, and found nothing big enough to change the outcome. And he said he told Trump that. So Meadows contradicted his own book under penalty of perjury. He admitted he was spinning in the book to protect Trump. But when he had to tell the truth under oath, he said Trump knew he lost. And Meadows tied Trump personally to the pressure campaigns. He admitted he helped set up the infamous January 2nd, 2021 call, where Trump told Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to find 11,780 votes. Meadows' emails and communications are cited in Jack Smith's indictment. He is a central fact witness. He is the guy who can connect Trump directly to the schemes to pressure state officials to organize fake electors to overturn the election results. And he has already told prosecutors everything. So this is Trump's worst nightmare. The ultimate insider. The guy who knew everything. The guy who was supposed to be loyal. He flipped. He got immunity. And he gave prosecutors bombshell evidence that Trump knew he lost and tried to steal the election anyway. That is betrayal. And it is the kind of evidence that could send Trump to prison if the cases ever go to trial. So let us break this down. Let us talk about what Meadows actually told prosecutors. Let us look at how his testimony destroys Trump's defense, and let us figure out what this means for Trump's legal future. So let us dive into how Mark Meadows' immunity deal works and what it means. When prosecutors give someone immunity, it is because they think that person can provide testimony that is more valuable than prosecuting them. So Jack Smith looked at Mark Meadows, Trump's chief of staff, and decided, we would rather have him as a witness against Trump than as a defendant alongside Trump. That tells you prosecutors think Meadows has information that can significantly strengthen their case. And based on what has been reported, they were right. ABC News detailed Meadows' cooperation. He met with prosecutors at least 3 times. One of those meetings was before a federal grand jury, which means he testified under oath, and the immunity he got came through Chief Judge James Boasberg, who had to approve it. So this was not a casual deal. This was a formal legal process where Meadows agreed to tell prosecutors everything he knew in exchange for protection from federal prosecution. And once he had that protection, he talked. And what he said is devastating. He told prosecutors Trump was dishonest on election night. He said Trump declared victory and claimed he had already won while votes were still being counted. And Meadows admitted that in hindsight, obviously we did not win. Think about that. Trump's chief of staff is saying Trump lied to the public about winning. He knew the race was not over. He knew all the votes had not been counted, but he went out and claimed victory anyway. That is fraud. That is knowingly making false statements to deceive the public. And it gets worse. Meadows told investigators he repeatedly informed Trump after the election that the fraud allegations were baseless. Every time someone came to them with a claim about stolen votes or hacked machines or dead people voting, Meadows said he looked into it and found nothing. And he told Trump that over and over. This claim is false. That claim is false. We have got no evidence. And Trump kept pushing the claims anyway. Meadows also testified that Trump was told the same thing by other officials. Attorney General Bill Barr told Trump there was no fraud. State election officials told him the counts were accurate. Even Trump's own campaign lawyers said the claims did not hold up in court. So Trump was not just getting this from Meadows, he was getting it from everyone around him. And according to Meadows' testimony, Trump ignored all of it and kept lying about fraud. And here is where Meadows really contradicts himself. In his memoir, which he published after leaving the White House, Meadows suggested the Justice Department did not seriously investigate the fraud claims. He implied there might actually be evidence that could have overturned the election. He wrote the book in a way that supported Trump's narrative, but under oath with immunity, he told prosecutors the opposite. He said the DOJ took the claim seriously, they investigated properly, they found nothing significant, and he told Trump that so Meadows was lying in his book to protect Trump. But when he had to tell the truth under penalty of perjury, he admitted Trump knew he lost. Sidebar's blog, run by former federal prosecutor Randall Eliason, published an analysis called Immunity 101 Mark Meadows Edition. Eliason explains that prosecutors do not give immunity lightly. They only do it when the witness can provide testimony that significantly strengthens the case against bigger fish. And in this case, the bigger fish is Trump. So the fact that Meadows got immunity tells us prosecutors believe his testimony is critical to proving Trump committed crimes. And based on what Meadows told them, that makes sense because Meadows can testify about Trump's state of mind, about what Trump knew and when he knew it, about conversations where Trump was told the fraud claims were false. That is exactly the kind of evidence prosecutors need to prove criminal intent. And Meadows did not just testify about Trump's knowledge. He also tied Trump personally to the pressure campaigns. The New York Times reported that Meadows admitted he helped set up the January 2nd, 2021 call where Trump told Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to find 11,780 votes. That call is infamous. It is one of the clearest examples of Trump trying to overturn the election by pressuring a state official to manufacture votes. And Meadows was involved in organizing it. He facilitated it. And now he has told prosecutors about it under oath. CNN covered how Meadows' emails and communications are explicitly referenced in Jack Smith's federal indictment of Trump. His texts, his calls, his involvement in the fake elector scheme, all of it is cited as evidence. So Meadows is not just a witness who can testify about what happened, he is a documentary source. His communications are part of the evidentiary record, and those communications show him coordinating with Trump and other co-conspirators to overturn the election. And legal experts are calling Meadows' testimony devastating. CBS News quoted analysts saying, Meadows is uniquely damaging because he combines proximity to Trump with testimony that he told Trump the fraud claims were false. He was the chief of staff. He was in the room for every important meeting. He knew what Trump was thinking and planning. And he is now on record saying Trump knew the fraud claims were baseless. That destroys Trump's "I genuinely believed it" defense, because how can you claim you believe something when your chief of staff has testified under oath that he told you it was not true? Yahoo News covered the broader implications of Meadows' cooperation. They pointed out that flipping Meadows' signals, prosecutors believed his testimony was essential to proving Trump's intent, and intent is the key element in the criminal charges. Trump is charged with conspiracy to defraud the United States and obstruction of an official proceeding. To prove those charges, prosecutors have to show Trump knew he lost the election and tried to overturn it anyway. And Meadows' testimony gives them exactly that. It shows Trump was repeatedly told there was no fraud, that he lost, and that the claims were false, and he pushed the lies anyway. And here is another piece that makes Meadows so dangerous for Trump. He is not just testifying about Trump's knowledge. He is testifying about specific actions Trump took: organizing the pressure campaign on state officials, setting up the fake elector scheme, planning to use the Justice Department to give legitimacy to fraud claims. All of this is stuff Meadows was involved in or witnessed, and he has now told prosecutors about it under oath. So prosecutors have a roadmap from someone who was at the center of the conspiracy. The Hill covered Meadows' immunity deal and emphasized that it leaves Trump incredibly vulnerable. Because Meadows is not some low-level aide who can be dismissed as unreliable. He is the former chief of staff. He is one of the most senior officials in the Trump White House. His testimony carries enormous weight. And when he says Trump knew the fraud claims were false, that is going to be very hard for Trump to overcome at trial. And there is another angle here. Meadows got immunity from federal prosecutors, but that immunity does not necessarily protect him in state cases. The New York Times reported that Meadows is still facing potential charges in Georgia's election interference case. He is one of the co-defendants in that RICO indictment. So even though he is protected federally, he is still at risk in state court. And that creates even more pressure on him to cooperate fully, because if he lies or holds back, prosecutors can use that against him in the state case. So Meadows has every incentive to tell the truth and give prosecutors everything they want. So let us break this down into the key pieces, because Mark Meadows' betrayal of Trump is one of the most significant developments in the entire legal saga. First, the fact that Meadows got immunity tells us prosecutors think his testimony is critical. Immunity deals are not handed out casually. Prosecutors only give immunity when the witness can provide testimony that is more valuable than prosecuting them. So Jack Smith looked at Meadows and decided his testimony against Trump is worth more than charging Meadows himself. That is a huge signal that Meadows has devastating information. Second, Meadows testified under oath that Trump was told the fraud claims were baseless. He said he personally told Trump there was no evidence. He said Bill Barr told Trump the same thing. He said state officials told Trump the counts were accurate. So Trump was not just hearing this from one person. He was hearing it from everyone around him. And according to Meadows, Trump ignored all of it and kept pushing the lies. That is proof of criminal intent. That is evidence Trump knew he was lying. Third, Meadows contradicted his own book under penalty of perjury. In his memoir, he spun the story to make it sound like maybe there was fraud and maybe the DOJ did not investigate properly. But under oath, he said the opposite. He admitted the DOJ investigated, found nothing, and told Trump that. So Meadows was lying in his book to protect Trump. But when he had to tell the truth or face perjury charges, he admitted Trump knew he lost. That is a massive blow to Trump's credibility and to any defense based on good faith belief. Fourth, Meadows tied Trump personally to the pressure campaigns. He admitted helping set up the Georgia call where Trump told Raffensperger to find votes. His emails and texts are cited in Jack Smith's indictment as evidence of the conspiracy. So Meadows is not just testifying about what Trump knew, he is testifying about what Trump did, the specific actions Trump took to try to overturn the election, and that testimony connects Trump directly to the criminal conduct. Fifth, Meadows' cooperation destroys Trump's "I was just listening to my advisor's" defense. Because Meadows is the advisor. He is the chief of staff. And he is now saying he told Trump the fraud claims were false. So Trump cannot say he was just following advice when his top advisor is testifying that the advice was actually, "You lost, there is no fraud." Stop pushing these lies. That defense collapses when the advisor himself says that is not what he advised. Sixth, the fact that Meadows met with prosecutors multiple times, including before a grand jury, shows he gave extensive cooperation. This was not just one interview. This was ongoing cooperation. Multiple sessions, grand jury testimony. That means Meadows provided a lot of information, detailed accounts, documentary evidence, everything prosecutors asked for. And that level of cooperation suggests prosecutors used Meadows' testimony to build their entire case against Trump. Seventh, Meadows' testimony about Trump being dishonest on election night is particularly damaging because it shows Trump was willing to lie about the results before he even knew what they were. He declared victory while votes were still being counted. He claimed he had won when he had no basis for that claim. And Meadows is on record saying, yeah, that was dishonest. We did not win. That establishes a pattern. Trump lied on election night, then he kept lying after he lost. It is all part of the same scheme to deny the results. Eighth, legal experts like former federal prosecutor Randall Eliason say Meadows is uniquely devastating because of his proximity to Trump. He was not a peripheral figure. He was the chief of staff. He was in every important meeting. He knew Trump's thinking. He saw Trump's reactions when he was told there was no fraud. So Meadows can testify not just about what Trump said publicly, but about what Trump said privately, about what Trump really knew versus what he was telling the public. That insider perspective is incredibly powerful evidence. Ninth, Meadows' communications are part of the documentary record. His emails, his texts, his phone calls, they are all cited in Jack Smith's indictment. So even if Trump's lawyers try to attack Meadows' credibility as a witness, the documentary evidence backs him up. There are written records of Meadows coordinating with Trump and others on the election overturn schemes. Those documents do not lie. They are contemporaneous evidence of what was happening in real time. 10th, the immunity deal creates a template for other potential cooperators. If Meadows got immunity and avoided prosecution by cooperating, other Trump aides might be willing to do the same. People like Jeffrey Clark, Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, they are all facing charges or legal jeopardy. And they might look at Meadows' deal and think, maybe I should cooperate too. So Meadows flipping could trigger a domino effect where more and more Trump allies decide cooperation is better than loyalty. 11th, Meadows' state-level exposure in Georgia adds even more pressure. His federal immunity does not protect him from state charges. He is a co-defendant in the Georgia RICO case, so he is still at risk there. And that means he has every incentive to keep cooperating, to tell the truth, to give prosecutors everything they want, because if he lies or holds back in federal testimony, prosecutors could use that against him in the state case. So Meadows is trapped. He has to cooperate fully or face consequences in Georgia. 12th, the betrayal aspect is psychologically devastating for Trump. Meadows was one of his most loyal aides. He stuck with Trump through the entire post-election chaos. He was by Trump's side on January 6th. He helped Trump try to overturn the election. And then he flipped. He cut a deal and testified against Trump. That has got to eat at Trump. Because if Meadows, the guy he trusted most, betrayed him, who else might flip? Who else might be talking to prosecutors? That paranoia has to be eating at Trump. So what does all of this mean for Trump's legal future? While Meadows' testimony is the foundation for the prosecution's case on criminal intent, prosecutors can use it to prove Trump knew the fraud claims were false. They can use it to show Trump acted with corrupt intent. They can use it to connect Trump directly to the pressure campaigns and the fake elector scheme. And while the federal cases are currently stalled because of immunity rulings, the evidence Meadows provided does not go away. It is still there. State prosecutors can use it. Future federal prosecutors can use it if Trump loses immunity when he is out of office. And the bombshell evidence Meadows revealed is not just helpful to prosecutors. It is devastating to Trump's defense because Meadows can testify about conversations where Trump was told he lost. He can testify about Trump's reactions to being told there was no fraud. He can testify about Trump deciding to push the lies anyway. Subscribe and don't miss me on YouTube. I'll bring you the hottest and most accurate news about current events in the U.S.